This is gonna hurt. Because I fell in love with the person who changed my life almost 10 years ago, but I haven't spoken to her in 8. I was 20, and from the moment we met, I knew I could never be the same. And I sat in that airport at the end of my first visit, wishing for just one more chance to tell her so many things in person, when this serendipitous voice called my bluff and announced that flight 320 en route to St. Louis has been canceled. I called to tell her that plans had changed, and I thought it was odd how she said she would see me in a minute, considering she dropped me off over an hour ago. As I stood in line, I felt someone touch my arm, and when I turned around, the first thing I saw was that she had been crying. I asked how she got back so quick, and she replied, "Because I never left." That night in the park, as we stayed up just before sunrise, I told her, "I think I'm falling for you." And she replied in this unbelievably poetic way, saying, "That's good, because I already know I have." Months passed, and I began to realize what it would take to be with a girl like her. I understood that I would have to become someone worth loving, someone of value, someone better than I ever thought possible. And so I began this pursuit to find the better me. I started volunteering at every opportunity I could. And as the football program started to get a lot of national attention, I was convinced she wouldn't be able to forget about what we had if the team just stayed in the headlines. So I put my heart into being a better teammate. And as a walk-on, I knew I'd never have the fans in that stadium cheering my name, but I was okay with that, because all I needed was for her to. My hair stayed long, but I took my education seriously. My choice to major in biology was an interest, not a passion. So each class grew more challenging, but I buried myself in those books. And I would imagine her surprising me some nights as I studied in the library. Years went by, and she says it's better if things are out of sight, out of mind between us, and we just stopped talking. Then, at the start of my senior year, I completely tore my knee and would need season-ending surgery. But I refused to let that be how my story ended. I compartmentalized the pain of rehab, determined to run out on that field just one last time, in the hopes that she might still be watching. Graduation came, and I entered the workforce witnessing the Great Recession, so I came up with the best cardio program known to man, and I just ran away from my problems. I began this international tour of immaturity, and as the miles started stacking up, I constantly felt the urge to reach out to her, to ask if she was feeling as lost as I was, to ask if she even still thought of me. And when I had the choice to stay in transit, I chose to come back because I felt unfulfilled and proving that person of value. It was going to be hard, but I had internalized that it's what she would expect. I focused on one of the best medical schools in the country, WashU in St. Louis, went door to door offering myself up for free until I found a researcher who could see how enthusiastic I was. But I had bills to pay, so I worked nights at a hardware store for near minimum wage. And one evening, as I'm taking the trash out and the bag rips and everything just spills all over, I asked myself, is this truly the better me? I developed this maddening obsession to examine the life I was afraid of living. And I looked to the military to satisfy this Socratic hunger. Now, in no way am I special, but I fought giants to be accepted into one of the most competitive programs with an average rate of 80% attrition to try and become a Navy SEAL officer. Simultaneously, I started laying the groundwork for my own nonprofit called I Do It For Her to help people more deserving than I could ever be. And it took years full of personal setbacks before I was accepted by the Navy, but those moments forged my resolve. At first, I was turned down. And on top of that, I was blessed with another chance to undergo full reconstructive knee surgery. So afraid that my injuries would disqualify me from service that I waited to tell my recruiter. Months later, I took the physical test again, but this time I made it. I left home to begin the 12 very stressful weeks of basic naval officer training. And just 3 weeks in, I went to the bathroom on mornings, and looking into the toilet afterwards, I thought, that is a lot of blood. Something dire was brewing inside me. Each meal ended in this agonizing discomfort, so I ate as little as possible until I graduated and could see a non-military doctor. After a colonoscopy, the doctor came in and showed me the pictures of my inflamed intestines and diagnosed me with the severe symptoms of ulcerative colitis. He said the only way I could be cured was if he surgically removed my colon, giving up whatever dreams I had of being a Navy SEAL. And after a somewhat contentious back and forth about how that wasn't going to happen, he prescribed this gamble of medications and hope. Not many people know about the true initiations to becoming a Navy SEAL, but trying to go through them with this invasion of colitis was utter misery. And so finding any semblance of relief was at its purest form desperate. We were preparing for the notorious Hell Week when a classmate of mine said, "It will bring out demons inside you didn't even know existed." And on the phone that Sunday, just a few hours before Hell Week started, I told my mom, "The person you're talking to right now, whatever happens to me, whether I make it or not, I won't ever be the same person you talk to again." We were doing one of the many varieties of something called surf torture. And I used to play this one song in my head, a song I still have memorized. And we're down to our underwear, and we're just treading water. And I began that single track playlist, enduring by fantasizing about her somehow being at the end of Hell Week. When all of a sudden the music just simply stopped. And the floodgates opened. And all these negative thoughts poured in. You're not a good officer. You're sick. You're weak. You don't deserve to be here. We came out of the water for a hypothermia check. And I swear I prayed to God with all my heart to just kill me, to end this suffering so that I wouldn't have to face the embarrassment of quitting. But that prayer went unanswered, and it's taken me a very long time to ever look to him again for help, because earning my trident, a symbol of being a SEAL, was a talisman maybe I falsely idolized over the years, but I sacrificed so damn much in pursuit of what I thought was my greatest purpose. And I saw it as him evading his end of our bargain. So when I tried to find personal salvation by just redesignating into another job in the Navy, but was told no and just given discharge orders, the way I spiraled down afterwards in self-destruction makes me the villain to my own story, because I felt like I let her and everyone else down. I looked for redemption without a map and no concern for my well-being. Having competed as an amateur boxer here in college, I would fight anyone who had gloves on or off. They say it's impossible to run away from your devils, but this is how you try, because there's actually a race called Running with the Devil, and it's 50 miles in the Las Vegas desert. And mine was during an excessive summer heat wave with "Do not resuscitate" written across my chest. I stagnated in mental purgatory until the thought of her catalyzed a vital need to climb out of the darkness. And I found the light again when, against all odds, during massive budget cuts, I somehow got my transfer into the Marine Corps approved. So, fighting my health through training, I earned a coveted spot in the very secretive infantry officers course. And the day I graduated, I thought I'd finally become someone she could take pride in. So I reported to 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines at Camp Lejeune as a rifle platoon commander. And the day I checked in, I saw all the training exercises we were going on as we prepared for our deployment to the Persian Gulf a year later. One that very recently took the life of a fellow 2-6 Marine. And because of this stress, this biological civil war was being waged inside. It forced a morning routine of immediately vomiting over the toilet, each day growing worse and developing into this almost hourly necessity And at times I would have to excuse myself from a conversation just so I could purge around the corner and release the pressure. It was a Monday morning, and after a very delirious weekend spent struggling for air every time I just turned over on my bedroom floor, I crawled to my bathroom and then down to my car. And as I'm driving towards base, I still have to pull over a few times to continue gagging myself so I don't pass out behind the wheel. Eventually at work, on my desk was a piece of paper. Pretty sure it was upside down, but I pretended to read it with this Adderall-like focus so I could just lean against the table for support. My boss walks by, and mid-stride he stops. And seeing how much of a wreck I'd become, I'm soon sent to the hospital. Things were bad. In the ER, they instantly start an IV of morphine while drawing blood for testing. My stomach had become so distended that I actually developed a stretch line down the center, like a pregnant woman. After a few hours, with just myself and this very young corpsman in the hospital room, a woman came in. And I still don't know who she was, but the prison sentence she gave me is something I'll never forget. She said, "Lieutenant Casey, your initial blood work has come back and it doesn't look normal." She pulls up a stool, sits down, sympathetically puts her hand on my arm and said, "Lieutenant Casey, I'm sorry. Well, you have cancer." That morphine, I just sunk further into my bed, reached for my phone, though not even registering. I should maybe call my parents at this point yet. And the thing is, this 18, 19-year-old corpsman, he's still in the room, and his jaw is just on the floor. So picture this. From my bed, with this heavy look, I say, "What? It's not like you have cancer." And then go back to my phone. My parents boarded the first plane possible, wondering if they'd ever see their son alive again. Speculation came from various doctors hesitant to confirm that it wasn't terminal. 2 days later, the official diagnosis comes: advanced stage 4 Burkitt's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I'm transported to a naval hospital in Virginia to instantly begin intense chemotherapy. Spinal taps are performed, fluids are drained from my lungs, devices placed into my body, organs fail, and I become the cancer patient. They described it as an explosion of cancer, with every single organ freckled with these little tiny tumors. It had metastasized. And in spite of their confidence that it hadn't yet spread to my brain, they still pushed chemo directly into it, alongside a device in my chest that would deliver that poison to the rest of my body. During those 6 months of chemo, at my lowest, I would close my eyes at night and just try to let go. I searched every corner of my psyche for this internal off switch, that if God still thought he deserved a chance with me, he could at least end that suffering. When I'd wake up, I'd be burning with anger, having to relive that abandonment day after day. I tried to banish the voids by imagining her asleep next to me in my hospital bed, that her breathing could possibly drown out the constant beeping of those machines, that she'd somehow look past the alien I'd become and love this hidden me. Still, as I became a bystander, feeling unwanted and invalidated as human time was not measured by the clock, but by the frequency of the pharmaceutical heroin injected into my veins, melting the fragments of my dignity. So when I entered remission, instead of feeling grateful, I only thought, what's the point? Because my survivor's gift was a dark depression and a holistic dependence on those narcotics. And unable to run away this time, I just stepped off that emotional cliff and I began this allegorical freefall away from reality until I crashed head first into a confrontation with all my thriving demons as I stepped back into the ring, metaphorically and literally, to settle the score once and for all. With the device freshly removed from my chest, but the one still in my brain, I took punch after punch until the dreams of her replaced my nightmares. The bell finally rang when I relocated to Washington, D.C. to start interning at the National Institutes of Health, in a clinical research lab that actually studies a basic form of my own cancer, alongside another internship on Capitol Hill with Congresswoman Ann Wagner speaking what little voice I have on the glaring dysfunctions of this country's VA. Both chances to be my own saving grace. Because now, instead of trying to outrun my history of shortcomings, I've actually found adventure in intercepting them and in preparing to drive a rally car over 5,000 miles across Europe so I can make it to the start of a 600-mile horse race through Mongolia. And for as much as this story is about the inspiration of love, believe me, I have a biblical share of misgivings staining my conscience that can't be undone. Broken relationships that won't be mended. And at times have devoted entire segments of my heart to holding pure hatred for others. Like this nuclear reactor on a warship, I propelled myself forward with the volatility of hate. But now, I'm trying to give my heart space to beat again because unquestionably I see the truth that we are all out there looking for the right person, but few are actually trying to be the right person. In my life, I set out on this radical course to understand the person I was because of a girl who probably has no clue what I've gone through since we met almost 10 years ago. When the last time we ever saw each other, I looked in her eyes and I promised I would change the world just to prove how much I loved her. So these events, these incredible moments, these scars, they do not define me. But instead serve as a reminder of when life tried to break me but failed. And I reflect on them as the evidence where the foundations of my character were built. So even though you have only felt a riptide in the ocean of experiences I've drowned in over the years, know that I still find a reason to keep swimming because I have never given up on that promise to her. And I do not stand in front of you today advocating for a cause, but instead am offering an idea, something that can't be defeated by failure unless you give up in the pursuit of it. Find intimate purpose in who you choose to be and never take for granted this ability to have a once-in-a-lifetime impact on those you meet. Because the fact is, this same infinite power lies inside all of us to inspire others to rearrange the stars if that's what it takes. Because everything I've done since that night in the park when she rearranged mine, I've done it for her. Thank you.